The three basic analyzers that I use are count, total, and statistics, and I wanted to show a few different ways of using these commands. So jumping into ACL, the Analyze menu has the three commands that we're going to use, the count, total, and statistics command. The count total or count command is pretty quick to run. I mean, you can hit OK, and the count will show as the number of records below. Sometimes when you import an ACL file, it can't calculate the number of records offhand and requires an analyze count. Now, the count function usually is used for an if statement to be rendered. So you might want to say something like, if the invoice amount is less than 0, let's do a count, and the count will tell us that there's 11 records. Now, we can click on invoice amount less than 0, and those 11 records will come up into the filter screen. Moving on into the total function, we're going to go back to the Analyze menu and just go to Total. And we'll total all fields here, except for payment terms. Payment terms, even though a number in this file is really how quickly you're paying a vendor, I don't need to add that up per se. So I'll add up the invoice amount and discount. And again, we'll get a total. Just quickly here, in using the command line function to get us back, if I can click on that total fields and bring us back to the dialog by selecting the edit command. Normally, again, we're doing a total if, so you're usually going to your if statement here and making some sort of change in filtering to then get a different total. So a quick command, but a very useful one, especially when you're trying to just do quick count totals or batch totals between files, and you really just want to understand quickly, what are my totals here between this file and that file. What can also be useful in doing that type of reconciliation between files is you can go to your log file, and all of your counts and totals will be there from the various files as saved from back in the time frame of before. So you can go back to these items later, especially if you do a bunch of them in a row. Open this file, do a total, open that file, do a total. You will see all of that activity in the log, and it's good for going back to reconcile balances quickly. So moving on to the statistics command under the Analyze menu again. What's nice about the statistic command is that you can use this on dates as well as amount fields. And as we scroll over here to the right, you can see the type. Maybe I'll just drag that over here. So that way we have the format, and not only can we do date but also numeric fields. And in this case, the payment term field would also make a lot of sense, because you could take a look at the total, but more so the average that it will calculate there. And again, let's just quickly run this against dates and numeric values, and that's what that will work on. And as you can see here, there are a fair number of empty dates, and probably a lot of them. However, there are some dates in there that of payments, with the highest ones being ending at 12/3/96. Then, if we take a look at an amount field, I'm just going to skip over, go down to one that's a little better, this invoice amount field. Here, what you can see is the number of positive items, the number of negative items, zeros, and getting you back to the total, 729, and that's your total records in the paid invoice file here, 729. Does have your total positives and negatives, and also getting you down to a bit of a net balance in this case. And the same thing true with the averages here, bring you down to a net average when you have the positive and negative averages. You get the highest values as well as the lowest values as well. In this case we have 5, but we will talk about how that could be changed. And again, a very useful tool in that it's a quick table, but it has a lot of information in that table. Again, payment terms, even just looking at that, lowest, highest, you can see 30 and 60, with the average being 33 across all 729 vendors. Now, from a date point of view, this again a little bit of a meatier date. So you have an invoice date that's filled in more. You have September 30, 95 through 2/1/97 being the ending date or the highest date in that particular file. So now let's take a look at some options, but let's focus our work as well, and we'll just take a look at the invoice amount field, and in this case we'll take a look at the More button, and instead of having number of high-low being 5, what we can do in this case is put 20, because now we're going to look at that many. And also back on the main page, we're going to select standard deviation. And this is a very popular statistic, more to look up on Google or other websites like Khan Academy that talk about statistics. But standard deviation can be used with the average that's going to be calculated, and that can be used to find things like items that exceed 3 times the standard deviation of that average amount. So if I hit OK, that will give me not only the averages but also the standard deviation, and now the top 20 items high and low. And this is useful when you have a date or you have an amount field that might have a lot of zeros in it and it throws you off, or it might have a lot of these kind of weird high balances that throws you off as well, and you want to get those out of there. So, going past 5 is a good thing to do. And again, just quickly going back to where is that, the standard deviation here, and the More button, changing the high-low to whatever number you'd like it to be.